Estela, and today I will be talking about how standardized testing has a negative impact on public schools. So according to the Glossary of Education Reform, a standardized test is any form of test that requires all test takers to answer the same questions, and two, is scored in a standard or consistent manner. Now there's two types of testings, aptitude, which includes the SAT or ACT, and achievement, which is the one I will be addressing, which is the ones that citizens and school board members rely on when evaluating a school's effectiveness. My first point is standardized testing negatively affects students. I see as students are the most important citizens in our society, yet treated as second-class citizens in regards to the education that is provided to them. We cater more to our economic needs rather than what helps them improve. According to the Program for International Student Assessment, there has been no improvement of students' achievement as the rise of standardized testing increases. In 2002, the United States placed 18th in math worldwide. Then in 2009, we went down to 31st place, which says a lot about what testing does to our students. There's also the concept of winners and losers, which separates students into remedial and advanced, causing the students remedial to fall behind, causing a hierarchy that causes self-esteem to lower. And not only do self-esteem lower, but it causes extreme stress. In 2002, the Sacramento Bee reported that stress about tests is so common that the Stanford 9 exam comes with instructions on what to do with the test booklet in case a student vomits on it. That's super sad and unhealthy. So my next point is standardized testing does not value diversity or creativity when it comes to socioeconomic or race and gender based. It is kind of like one size fits all, which is used for clothing as well. So for example, a pair of pants will not fit me the same as it will any other person, which is the same with standardized testing. The way that one student takes the exam will not be the same as another student. So this notion of one size fits all is false and does not apply to everyone. An example that I have for you is the fruit question, which is taken off of a 4th grade exam. And the question is, fruits have seeds, so which of the following is not a fruit? A, apple, B, pumpkin, C, orange, and D, celery. Now, we can take a look at this, and obviously the answer is celery. But for a 4th grader who has never had celery before, because of the economic status of their parents, this becomes a problem. According to Valerie Strauss from the Washington Post, testing does not measure creativity, but your ability to test well. So if you're a person who is able to retain the information and maintain it while the testing is going on, and then just pour it out, then you will do good. But if you don't have that ability, then it will really harm the way you score on it. It encourages a simplistic way of thinking in which there are only right and wrong answers, which doesn't apply in real-world situations. The format is also very biased to male students because studies have shown that they adapt more easily to the game-like point scoring of multiple choice questions. My other point is it not only affects students but also educators. They're teaching the test rather than methods, a way to actually learn the material and apply it. And fail to educate them for higher education. They're pressured into cheating because the scores affect their salaries. Higher scores equal more funding, making it easier to have more resources. So if a teacher sees that the students aren't scoring that well, it already causes stress in their mind knowing that the amount of funding that they will receive is not that much. On USA Today, there was an incident in Washington, D.C. in 2011 where teachers were attending weekend pizza parties, which were just code words for they were going to stay and correct students' answers so that they can score higher, meaning more funding, and they won't be punished. There's also other methods that we could be using like the game-based assessments, which is seen as a more creative way to test students, and it is also shown and proven that students retain more of the information when they're having fun. And then there's also the portfolio assessments, which is just a folder of everything that the student has done up until they finish high school, which is more accurate than one standardized testing proven over a long period of time. So in conclusion, standardized testing is negatively impacting our schools, and we should switch to other creative methods like game or portfolio-based testing. Thank you.
All right, there's a tendency that happens in a lot of speakers to kind of hesitate to actually make a declarative statement. So I get a lot of the same thing that you did at the beginning. Today I'm going to talk to you about how standardized testing has a negative effect on schools. No, you're not. You're going to tell us that it has a negative effect on schools. If you're telling us how it has a negative effect, that's an informative speech. You're supposed to be making an argument, so make it a declarative statement. That's just one of those little things that happens all the time because of the way people sometimes try to avoid saying directly what their position is. I think we know what your position is, so go ahead and follow through with that. There's not really a preview of what the supporting structure is going to be. In the body of the speech, I did catch some distinct supporting points, although I did think that you kind of rushed through the first point, so it was a little bit harder to pick out. The second point does tell us that standardized testing doesn't value certain kinds of achievement or accomplishment. And then there's a third argument that's basically a general complaint about teachers and the way they utilize these things. I think you need to have a clearer statement on that, because some of the issues that you talk about there, I think, are maybe random examples, like the teachers having a pizza party and correcting their students' tests as a way of fixing that problem. I don't know how widespread that practice is. There's not really any data about that. But I think there is a broader issue here concerning whether or not the teachers are, instead of teaching the material, they're just teaching the tests to their kids, and that might have some impact on the validity of the educational process. I think the strongest evidence you had was at the beginning, where you show that despite the 18 years that we've had these kinds of assessment tests at different grade levels, we haven't had any improvement in our performances in the schools. And in fact, we've dropped in the one category from 18th to 31st, which seems to suggest that the data that we're getting is not being useful in any particular way. I thought that that was pretty solid evidence for that first point. The example of the question that you have on fruits, for instance, that sounds to me like it's more one of those aptitude kinds of questions, although it is an objective kind of question, rather than the achievement sorts of questions like people doing math or finishing an English essay and then answering questions about that essay. It may in fact appear on some of those Stanford 9 type tests. I think that that's what we need to have more of. I think it's a good hypothetical illustration on that. I did appreciate the effort that you put into on explaining stress, and how there are instructions about what to do if students vomit on the the STAR test, what is it, the Stanford, thank you. I have a hard time saying Stanford because I don't like them. That's probably the real reason. All right, and then like I said, and then you've got the one example about the teachers who apparently got together to fix their tests, and I think that's a little generic, and I don't know how widespread that practice is. I said that before. So there's some good data here. Probably need a little bit more. The organizational structure, there is an organizational structure, but it needs to be previewed, and I think the claims need to be a little bit sharper. Your explanations are pretty good, but the exit of your speech comes back and makes a policy claim. So we should get rid of these and put in these other kinds of tests. And now you've kind of shifted the point of your argument, and that invites different arguments to be made as a consequence. All right, thank you.